Hello everyone and welcome to this live webinar. I'm Sheldon Varco, Membership Manager, New South Wales and South Australia at Osmine, and I'm looking forward to hosting you for today's session with our members Obzervr and PM11. This webinar will focus on the application of digital technologies in mining, with Obzervr and PM11 showcasing how leading METS companies interface across the industry to deliver data-driven results and make operations better, safer and more productive. The webinar will begin with a presentation by Tanya Walter, CEO of Obzervr, who is a software engineer by trade and has a passion for using technology to make a difference in the lives of everyday people. We'll then hear from Mark Cooper, CEO PM11, who is a leading advisor into the mining industry in best practices in the use of ERP systems and has worked for many mining and energy companies around the world. Mark and Tanya will then draw on a recent collaborative project between the organisations to demonstrate the power of data-driven decision-making in action. There will then be time for audience Q&A. You can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen to send your questions over at any time during the webinar. You also have the option of upvoting on questions you find the most relevant, and we'll prioritise these during the Q&A session. I definitely encourage you to get involved, as the speakers today we have will be great. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to hand over to Tanya to kick things off for us. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you, Sheldon, and good morning, everyone. So thank you for attending the webinar this morning, or whatever time zone you happen to be in. So as I said, or Sheldon said, that my name is Tanya Walter, and that's my face up on the left. I am the founder and CEO of Obzervr. Obzervr is a personal digital assistant in the pocket of every remote frontline worker in remote environments anywhere on Earth. We have a powerful work execution application connecting remote workers with the machines they work on, with their head office and with each other. Today, along with our partner PM11, we're going to share a case study of how Obzervr shapes digital transformation across leading miners who are looking to the future of a digital mine. Our journey started 4 years ago, where Mark was looking for a flexible work execution solution to assist with a mobile plant project he was working on. And we were able to, in just a couple of days, configure a pilot solution for the target client, including both the mobility and analytics. And as they say, the rest is history. So I'll now hand over to Mark to introduce himself and PM11.
Thanks, Tanya. Hi, everybody. My name's Mark Cooper, as Tanya said, and I'm CEO of PM11. I personally have a long history in mining, and particularly in ERP software, and specifically over 20 years in SAP. So, in fact, a lot of what our focus is at PM11 as a company is the efficient usage of SAP. So where Obzervr are the experts in mobility anywhere, PM11 is really focused on ensuring that data collected at the coalface by Obzervr supports a great business process in SAP. And that's where our real synergy lies. A little bit about PM11, just on this slide. So as I said, we're very much focused on solutions to optimise business processes. We do that in a variety of ways, but starting on the left-hand side, we have a suite of add-on solutions for SAP, and I'll talk about that in a little bit more detail. And those suite of solutions are all focused on delivering a productivity uplift in the maintenance work area in particular. And then as we move from left to right, the advisory services, so we leverage our expertise and experience in best practices and business process experience to advise our customers. And then we also provide, of course, project management and consulting, covering everything from any specific IT initiative and project management process through to typical SAP consulting, and predominantly in PM, in plant maintenance. But having said that, my background is in finance, and we have a variety of other consultants in different skill sets, whether that's in the warehousing process or HR or those sorts of processes as well. And then finally, we have a SAP technical team, and we boast a strong sort of technical integration team, which includes ABAPers and Fiori developers and SAP support teams. So that's our core business. And as I said, our goal is all about improving productivity, which is why PM11 and Obzervr really came together in the first place. We truly believe in empowering the maintenance planner through to the maintenance worker in the field. And if you're going to have success in that space, you have to give the tools to the right people in the field at the right time. So that's particularly relevant for the SAP integrated Obzervr. So if I have a look a little bit about our solutions, and all of the, as you can see, probably on the left-hand side, the blue section, what we've focused on is the 5 key work management areas that assist in that plant maintenance space. So starting at the top with planning and moving through scheduling, dispatching, executing and optimizing work. So all of those steps really require different, well, they incorporate different skill sets and different personnel, but they also require different solutions. So each one of those activities has supporting SAP solutions that we've developed embedded in SAP, and those are those orange boxes across the top. So as you can see, in planning and optimizing, its KPI snapshots, annual estimates, etc. It's all about that maintenance planning and optimization of the work, scheduling and maintenance. So looking at the work progress, matching off the manning with the appropriate work that's coming down the line, and then the printing of work orders and scanning of work orders, as well as Fiori solutions to support the dispatch of work. And then, as you can see, that section where we're talking about execution, that's the important section that we're going to talk about today. And where we came to that section, we understood that we really needed a solution that was best of breed, best in space. And that's why we chose Obzervr. So it's really important for us that most of the work done in that execution space is done in the field. And let's be honest, SAP screens don't translate that well into the field. So our goal was to integrate SAP with Obzervr, and so that all the planned and scheduled and released work orders could appear seamlessly in an application like Obzervr, with all the relevant documentation, things like PRTs from SAP, check sheets, safety checks and the like. And from that genesis, we've been able to create a powerful engine to drive the functionality, things like measurement point updates, time confirmations, component changeouts, work order closures and the like. So that means that the data that's destined for SAP is positioned back into SAP at the right time. And we'll talk about that quite a lot, because really that's part of the key to the benefits that we're going to be talking about as we go forward. And then the other part of it is that Obzervr also captures a whole bunch of other data, and we'll talk about that as well. And that might be safety data, it might be environmental data, or whatever. So that's why we've chosen Obzervr in that particular space. So I'll hand over to Tanya, and she can take you through a little bit about Obzervr and who Obzervr are.
Good, thanks, Mark. Good background explanation there. So for those who are new to us, Obzervr, as I said, is a powerful work execution application and a cloud platform. We run on Microsoft Azure Cloud, and we connect remote frontline workers with the machines they work on, head office and each other. And our cloud solution enables all aspects of work, as Mark mentioned, that are required by remote workers to enable a safer and more productive frontline team. We allow the user to collect, store, analyze, and process their data and view it through industry standard technologies like Power BI and integration through, again, industry standard APIs. And from the very get-go, we engaged a cross-section of the workforce to build Obzervr and the platform that we know today, that everyone in your business can actually make use of. We also plugged into widely used ERPs or CMMS systems, because we knew that to really enable that productivity and financial gain, being able to create that synchronous flow of data, whether it be an ERP or be an IoT machine, SCADA devices, was going to be really important for that data value chain, and that there would never be a worry as to whether the data was integrated or not and where it was in the system. So we do provide our clients with user-friendly dashboards. Each dashboard is produced, it can be specific to the customer. We do have those templates, and it provides data trends and insights which drive either the safety KPIs or safety culture, your maintenance KPIs, scheduling decisions, and then for those more longer term clients where we have a lot of data, being able to start using that information to predict machine failures and look at that asset lifecycle optimization. So to dig a little deeper into the previous points, Obzervr has been built with safety as front of mind. Every team can capture their safety information as they are beginning their work or before they're able to do their work. This helps teams ensure they are switched on and compliant for the task. This also allows your HSE department to use near real-time BI or business intelligence to build a proactive safety culture. Further to that, Obzervr is designed to provide your team with a simple, effective planning tool to manage your scheduling and dispatch of your field teams. Our platform provides transparency across the processes, allowing businesses to use data to drive improvement for really any aspect of your business. Our focus here today is quite a bit on maintenance, but it's really all of those remote teams and the work that they do. As for teams, all work can be reassigned and rescheduled based on the current operational requirements or team availability, breakdowns, etc. So Obzervr also allows you to use previous readings, be they sample results or machine data, to support maintenance teams with added ability to manage by exception and drive data-driven alerts and alarms. So Obzervr allows a predictable asset lifecycle maintenance process or value chain, informed capital investment decisions, depreciation cycles, really easily done through our business intelligence capability. So if we hop into one of the projects that we worked on jointly, and share a bit about our partnership, how our partnership resulted in this SAP plugin. It's been around for a good 2 to 3 years now, our plugin, but we'll just talk about what we've achieved over the past sort of 12 to 24 months. We've pioneered a industry-leading solution, and I guess the rest of the webinar will be around the benefits of this integration to the customers. So Obzervr, customers choose Obzervr because we digitize a disjointed and paper-heavy process. You would have seen some of the screenshots there. Obzervr allows teams to standardize on their work, to work safer, be more productive. The paper folders that you saw there is not new to most of you. It's an industry that we know, and that's the paper-heavy process that we actually digitize into one single application. The problem is one you've seen before: your common defect logbook, a batch of service sheets to be captured into your CMMS at the end of a 12-hour shift, a take 5, collection box, or the sorting and collation of work orders on a Friday. There's really a profound amount of double handling of this paper by planners, operators, supervisors, and trades. And valuable data is actually locked away on these paper forms. Faults and hazards are not always captured, leading to unnecessary breakdowns. And there's a delay in data reporting and analytics from the front line back to the people who need that information. So the project that we worked on was really to remove or reduce this paper footprint. digitize the work orders and integrate to SAP to create that value chain that Mark was talking about, to pull all work orders from inspections to service to maintenance down onto this single application. Safety and critical controls were all a prerequisite to all work being done, and the job needed to be stopped if it was deemed unsafe to proceed. Obzervr Capture reads work from the management portal where work is scheduled and dispatched. And depending on your business operating model, we can retrieve 10 days rolling, or some people have 2 weeks, depending on your business rules, from SAP or other CMMS systems that we integrate to. The calendar and dashboard indicate where work is planned, assigned, in progress, so giving that supervisor a visual understanding of where all of his work is for his teams. There is an SOP on the app, standard operating procedure, to guide the operators or trades through the job. Safety items, as I said, can be prerequisite, meaning they can't commence until safety and critical controls have been assessed and passed. The app can show work order operation details, bill of materials, parts required. You can order additional parts, see what's in the warehouse. We also pull down manuals and attachments using the SAP connector and attach these to the work order. And then the digitized work orders include alerts and exceptions for the operator to see and use when they have out of range readings. We can create follow-on work orders if a defect is noted in the field. This work order is actually sent directly to SAP for processing. And if it's marked as, assigned back to that operator, it can send it, get the next work order number, send it back down to that operator for, working on right there and then. So time confirmations are also completed for each job. Once the trade or operator has completed their work, he marks the work order as complete on Obzervr, and the job is automatically tech-coded back in SAP. All the data that is now captured in Obzervr is served up on embedded dashboards, from machine readings to KPIs to safety, etc. So there's no more sorting through Excel spreadsheets, trying to collate data to review, machine asset health, safety, etc. So that's a little bit of a snapshot of all the work. There's multiple solutions that we use. We bring them together, we orchestrate them, we centralize them, and we send them out to the remote workers or remote teams to do their work on. But with all that talking, I'll hand back to Mark so he can take you through the rest.
Okay, thanks, Tanya. Look, I suppose what Tanya referred to there was what we're going to do is just take you through where we think the savings are and where we think the real benefits have been, and we'll showcase that in terms of this webinar. There'll be time to have a look at specifics in terms of functionality and talk about that as well in the Q&A. But I think if we had a look at if we want to showcase the real benefits and where the savings lie, you have to look at what's at stake, and talking to companies that we've spoken to, SAP companies who use SAP, they're asking, how can we get real cost savings in maintenance? What can a digital footprint or a digital transformation process or automation deliver to that goal? And they're the key questions. So from our point of view, there's actually more at stake than actually just replicating SAP screens. And I think that sort of goes to that first box there, the grey box, where we're talking about the digitalisation of forms. Companies commence on a digitisation journey, and many companies just try to digitise the forms, which is great. And as Tanya said, there's a lot of manual paperwork out there that is still in play, and you go to any site right now and they're still doing manual inspections on paperwork. So the problem there is to first of all capture that data. Now, often organisations take that step, but they take that step to maybe PDF that data or to just capture it on a device. But it's not useful data, and I think that's the key difference. So from our point of view, when we commenced this journey with Tanya and Obzervr, it was all about actually collecting data that digitising forms that actually collected the real data behind that form, and that's where the value lies. The second part of the value is the next box, and that's in the analysis of the data. And I'm not only talking about SAP data. SAP data is important to drive the next maintenance call or the next process that's going to occur, but it's actually not SAP data, non-SAP data, sorry. So often what's collected for the benefit of SAP is only a small portion of the data, and if we inject safety checks, as Tanya was talking about, or compliance checks or an environmental check, because it's a work order that requires an environmental check at the time that work order is dispatched to Obzervr, then we're already ahead of the game, because what it does is actually means that you're actually collecting that data at the right time and you're not trying to catch up. And finally, probably the biggest area, the area that we were focused on, of course, was around the integration to SAP. So that's a huge step change, and it's more of a step change towards a digital work order. And that was our ultimate goal. So for our projects that we're tackling together, we're, from a PM11 point of view, we're focused on a slick business process. So we wanted to make certain that process captured data at the source, and that's really critical for driving better SAP outcomes. So I'll give you some flow-on benefits of how that's come about. So in maintenance in particular, in maintenance savings, many companies struggle to close out their work orders in SAP because they're waiting on time confirmations, or they're waiting on the measurement readings, or they're waiting on the rotable to be returned to the warehouse so that it can be checked back in, or whatever the process is that is part of your process. So if that's the hold up, then why not get that right at the point of collection? So from our point of view, those flow-on effects have just been huge for our customers in the maintenance area. Then there's other cost and financial type savings. So obviously, if work orders have their costs confirmed faster and they're closed more regularly, or they're closed promptly, then work orders don't stay open for months, and then have and are subject to that weakest link where they're not yet finalised their costs. So to actually bring that process forward or tighten that process is really critical as well. And then finally, having a true integration framework, which is what we've created as our Obzervr integration framework to SAP, is not just about replicating screens or having APIs that are the links between one product and the other. It's actually more than that. It's about interrogating the SAP and returning the appropriate error messaging. So we have a whole error messaging and traffic cop sort of type process in SAP. We can also theoretically interrogate SAP to understand if, for example, a material is available right now, not just a stock on hand value in a warehouse in SAP, but to actually take into account what's been committed, what's been already in transit, what's coming. And I think they're the things that mining companies really struggle with, because it is a supply chain which is always moving. So you need to be able to give the power to the tradesperson and give the information to the tradesperson so that they're actually empowered to actually complete their job. So they're the three main areas where the value lies, and that's what we've found at our customers is the main areas that they're saving money. So if I go to the next slide, they're following on from that, there's some key lessons, I suppose, in this century, and that is that data is an asset. And if you look at other organisations, Google understand that, or Amazon understand that, but why not mining companies? And I think we give them their credit; they do understand that, but it's actually giving the power to the operator is where they perhaps miss the boat. So they're all trying to collect a lot of data, and so much data is collected at any mining operation. So when it comes to implementing Obzervr, what we've found is that it needs a really change in mindset by the organisation as well. So the organisation's got to be ready for that. So from a PM11 point of view, getting more accurate data flowing into SAP is great, a great thing for the customer. And so we know that that'll solve a lot of issues. So if we have a look at those comments down the left-hand side, you know, we don't recognise that number. Well, you know, the good thing is that we can automate the analytics. We can define the precise definitions of those KPIs. We can capture the information within tolerances, that sort of thing. So you will always understand that number from now on. Well, the second one, we're too busy to enter timesheets, and it's just such a common theme at most mining companies. So, but no longer do you need to rely on that, on the persistence of the supervisors to chase down that paperwork. It's just in the system by virtue of the fact that you've actually got to follow a business process, not a screen, but a business process. If you have a look at the next one, you know, we don't have office time to update SAP. What we've found at customers is that it just releases that drudgery of paperwork and screen time. And as I said, it's about capturing information automatically. And the last 2 points are all about analytics and data, and good companies recognise that they trust their data. If they can get trust in data, it's critical to actually improve performance and make better decisions in the long run. So if I look at the combined solution, there's probably 4 main benefits, and Obzervr really provides 3 of those. And from the left-hand side, the digital platform, of course, of which you need a digital platform to be able to operate in the field. The online, offline, it's got to operate underground. It's got to operate out on a rail line. It's got to operate on a conveyor, you know, kilometres away from the site. And it's got to sync back in at the appropriate times. And of course, the analytics side of it as well. So they're the 3 main components or circles that are covered by Obzervr. And then, of course, what we've done is actually inject this fully integrated SAP component in the middle. And I think that just gives, it just improves all of the positives on the right-hand side of the screen, which is, you know, it's all about saving time, simplifying the user experience, making certain that the data is accurate and it's timely, of course. So if I step onto the next slide. So one of the other things I think we've found is a discussion when we've talked to many mining companies, and that is around automation. And it's probably around the definition of automation. I think when you think of automation, you think of, you know, often people think of robots in manufacturing lines or packing machines that provide that automation. But I like the definition, which is that automation is a technology by which a process or procedure is performed with minimal human assistance. And I think that really encapsulates what you can do in a maintenance process. So in a maintenance process, we've just got to understand that humans are necessary. And so a SAP integrated Obzervr is automation, because what we're doing is minimising that human assistance. We're minimising those errors that are coming from just a range of different paperwork, or people just not completing their tasks back in a defined system like SAP. So at most mining companies, you know, and this slide really talks about maintenance. Most mining companies, maintenance is outside of maybe prime materials is the largest cost. So why not lift that process efficiency and gain some real potential savings in automation? So rather than focusing automation on perhaps an area in contracts or procurement or a warehouse where maybe you might generate a small efficiency gain, if you can grasp the potential in maintenance and actually push it right up the value chain, both in terms of efficiency and savings on the other angle, it's a really great opportunity for many mining companies. So what we've done is look at our experiences implementing SAP empowered through Obzervr and the integration, and we've looked at where the particular efficiencies and those savings are. And irrespective of the teams, across the top, there's, as I said, there's simplification, clarity of work, there's integration, there's immediate data updates, there's automation, that sort of thing. But along the side, we've actually measured that there's probably 2 or 3 major areas where there's actually a real uplift, and we've tried to measure those uplifts. So particularly in the planner and scheduler, they just get an uplift because their data is much better. So if they're getting data on time, it's coming back into their SAP system, then their next maintenance call is much more accurate. Their next maintenance call is driven off the measurement point that's actually been collected. So it's a flow-on effect, but it is a real thing. So what we've noticed is quite a big uplift in the planners and schedulers area. The second one is around the maintainer and the supervisor. I didn't put supervisor, but perhaps I should have. But in the maintainer and supervisor, they've got that ability just to reduce their costs, their impact, and particularly getting more clarity, more time, more safety focus, less effort, clarity on parts, that sort of thing. So as well as what Tanya talked about, which is it is a workflow system. So alerts can go to supervisors if for example, supervisors are required to know about something, whether that's something that's out of tolerance, whether a reading has been made that for a measuring point that says that this actually needs to be alerted to somebody else. So we can build in all of those processes depending on the type of work that's occurring. One of the other things, I suppose, outside of the real benefits that we just talked about is there's actually a plethora of non-financial benefits. And, you know, I suppose firstly, just people are much happier because they've got less time at their desks. And it's a really hard thing to measure. But what we have found is that workers actually just become much happier around not having to update and navigate one screen at a time through SAP, which isn't always sequential for them. And so that's really quite important. The second thing is around safety and compliance controls. And what we've noticed is that it's just much more simplified. And, you know, if you truly enable the safety culture into the field, then what you're actually doing is actually pushing it beyond the office and into people's hands where they actually are living and breathing safety every day. And then finally, Obzervr automates the capture of business intelligence. So we've talked about that as well. You know, it's providing a powerful lever for business or decision makers to actually look at their data, whether that's safety data, compliance data, inspection data, measurement points, work order numbers, whatever it is, you'll be getting all of that data through the Obzervr analytics as well as putting it back into SAP. So there's really quite a lot of I suppose non-financial type benefits, but benefits that we've noticed that are valuable. So if I look finally just at the savings summary, and that will give us a lot of time just to go through questions and actually talk about the functionality specifically. But if I was to summarise the savings that have been for a lot of customers, you know, they are removal of paper and double handling. I think that's probably the number one. And that's the goal of any digital transformation project. And I think from our point of view, that's been a success. The second one has been just productivity increasing. And for maintainers in the field, we've noticed an increase of up to 55%. So this is really through real-time saving of time and saving of effort and knowledge. If they know that parts are actually available, if they know that there's actually they can complete their timesheet and actually not have to worry about handing it off to someone else or going back to an office, they can actually complete all those tasks and actually move on to the next job much faster. So their speed of moving through work orders has been increased as well. And of course that, moves all the way up to supervisors and superintendents and managers through analytics as well. So, and the third one is it's about also collecting new data, not data for SAP's benefit, as I said, but data that we can leverage as well for the operation. The fourth one, we've simplified the process, so it's all about a user-friendly process, and of course, like I said, it's a workflow-based process, not a SAP screen-based process, which is really quite important because for any of those SAP users out there, they understand that you don't automatically know that if you go to one screen that you must then go to a different screen and actually complete something else, because it's part of the process, unless you're actually following a documented process that's up on your wall or something similar. So on the right hand side, what we have captured is probably the key statistics from our experience of implementing Obzervr with the SAP integration, and that is, there's been a 55%, up to a 55% increase in productivity. We've taken away 86% or more of their check sheets, and that's really quite important because if you talk about some sites, and I know Tanya knows some of the numbers in terms of the numbers of checklists, but they're thousands of checklists, and it depends on the equipment type or the function location or the work order type. So with all of those different variations, we inject the right checklist at the right time for the right work order into the Obzervr app, so that then that checklist is actually completed and then they can move on with their work. And there's obviously, a turnaround to get clients up and running is in a short period of time, inside 90 days is our target. So that's been our process. And so what we do is we run really tight schedules to make certain that we can deliver on our programs of work. So for Obzervr and PM11, our journey has been much more about increasing productivity and data quality and data transparency for our customers. And the data and the way that customers buy is somewhat a little bit different. And I suppose that's perhaps what I was trying to refer to earlier is that often they come to us and sort of say, oh, we just want to capture our data or reduce all this paperwork. But there's so much more to it. And I think if you can get your head around those major areas where there is opportunity, then I think it's a great opportunity for a lot of organisations. I might hand back to Tanya maybe, and you can take over a little bit more, Tanya.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. As you can see, I did well with the delegation today, so thank you for that. So I think to summarize, what I thought was good was the Obzervr and PM11 journey has been about increasing productivity, data quality, transparency, all these facts and statistics that Mark talks about. It's really key to who we are as a company, the reason that we love technology, and the reason that we've found a high synergistic partnership between the two businesses. So we will open up with Sheldon's help. We'll open up the Q&A now, probably for about 10 minutes, and then run through any questions you might have. So I'll just ask you to hop in, Sheldon.
Excellent. No, thanks a lot for that, Tanya, and some really great presentations there. That slide we just had up on the screen there, that's some phenomenal statistics and savings that you've helped customers with. And I just concur with what you said. It looks like a great journey you've been on. Very positive to see a collaborative initiative with such powerful results. And I also like one of your lines you said at the start there, Tanya, about building a proactive safety culture. I think that's absolutely key in the industry at the moment. So thanks a lot for that. So as Tanya mentioned, we are now on to the Q&A session, and we do have 10 to 15 minutes to run through these. You can still submit your questions through on the Q&A box down the bottom, and make sure to upvote if there's a question already asked there that you particularly want answered. I'll start off with a question here from Nicole. So Do you help mining operations implement a paperless operation and work with them on the cultural change? So obviously that can be a big job there. So maybe open that one up to you first, Tanya.
Yeah, so I'll give my response, and then I'll just check with Mark if he wants to add anything. But essentially that initial, I like to call it educate and inspire, Nicole, because taking a paper form and putting it on an app is just going to be wrong and you will fail. Or, you know, so whether you put it onto a PDF on an app or just digitize it into something like Obzervr, it's just wrong. There's a lot of IP that we bring, intellectual property, around what is the purpose of this end user? Why am I here? Who am I? What do I care about? And being able to give that person the ability to answer correctly so that your analytics will work automatically and your SAP will now be able to process things automatically. So a checkbox, I always use this example, you know, did you check the oil? A checkbox, wrong. It's not going to help analytics. I checked it, I didn't check it. Is it good? Is it bad? So being able to put, you know, really tangible, did you check the oil? 1, 2, 3. 1, I checked the oil, all is good. 2, I checked the oil, there was a problem, I had to top it up, but now it's fine. 3, I checked it, major problem, I don't. So now that's a follow-on work order. Now we can automate for the 3s some follow-on work orders back into SAP, reordering. So there's a lot of work that we do for the digitization from paper to digital. We streamline, we help you get the right answers for analytics back into SAP. So the answer is yes, and that cultural change around, now that they understand the purpose of the 1, 2, 3 or the ABC, how mines across, you know, the country actually adopt that same structure because they can see the follow-on benefits of that.
Excellent. And Mark, did you have anything to
No, I don't think I
add
have too much more to add other than the fact that obviously maintenance personnel are not always the first to grab any I suppose opportunities in that digital space. So and it is a matter of actually not only just implementing a solution, but it's also about taking them on a bit of a journey. And I think that's a good part of the question.
Yes, for sure. And just while you're on the topic of that SAP integration, there's a few questions that we have coming through around different aspects of that. So I'll just start off with a question here. So what are the key integration points with SAP that we can benefit from?
I think that's you, Mark, but you're on mute.
Yeah, there we go. Sorry, can you hear me
now?
Yep. Yeah, look, I think that we have a variety of integration points, and maybe if I page down a few slides, Tanya, I think there was a couple there that maybe down to one more. Yeah, that one's fine. Let's just give you a couple of examples, but I'll take you through the whole list. I've got a list here. So yes, we have integration points, and you know I could provide quite a highly technical document, which I didn't really want to do in a webinar, but we're quite happy to talk about with any customer. And that sort of covers everything from obviously the relevant technical structures, so functional locations, equipment, moving across between SAP and Obzervr, and only the ones that are necessary for the work that's actually in train. Obviously the SAP work order or the operation that comes across from SAP, the components, the PRT files, so all the PRT files, all the files that are actually necessary for whether they're manuals or whether they're service checks and that sort of thing. We also in the reverse capture, of course, damage, fault, causal information around the work and the equipment. For serialized rotables, we actually check we capture the serial number of the fitted and the dismantled items, so that really is a really critical thing, so that we can then that process is often fails in a lot of mining companies, so that whole rotable process is really critical for us to capture at the time that it gets installed or dismantled. Obviously measuring points, which we've talked about. So things like hours or heat or whatever it is that you're actually capturing. Time confirmation, so obviously that's an important one because that really takes away a lot of those manual timesheets. Region codes, self-issue materials, so materials. There's also obviously a follow-on notification that Tanya talked about, as well as work order finalisation. So it really goes from end to end, and I can take anyone through that journey with a real life demonstration, but there's sort of some of the examples there.
Excellent, thanks, Mark. And there was a follow-up question there about when a maintainer is assigned a work order, what do they see? But you've ran through that quite well.
Well, actually, if I go back a couple of slides, I'll just give you 1 short minute on that. So just back 2 slides there, Tanya. Yeah, this is probably a good. Actually, 1 more slide. Sorry, back up, please, Tanya. But this is probably a good example of, sorry, 2 more, of what you might see from a team allocation point of view. So if you're a supervisor, you might be part of a team, and you'll be a part of an electrical team or a mechanical team. You'll see all of the work orders that are assigned to your team. Similarly, if you're a maintainer and you have the opportunity, you're part of a team of maintainers, you have the opportunity to pick up any one of the work orders that are actually assigned to that particular team. So you can see that, you can see all of the work orders, like you see there might be breakdown work orders, inspections, there might be statutory work orders. So all of those priorities sort of come in play. Then if I go to the next screen that Tanya was on, that's probably really critical. Once you get into the work order, once you go into a specific work order operation, you'll see this. And it might be that you've got a prerequisite. It says you can't actually complete this work until you've actually completed this safety check or this compliance item. So all of the tasks are sitting there ready to complete. And what we have is part of the power of Obzervr is you've got the workflow down the bottom of the screen there, the planned work complete. And it gives you that flow so that you can actually just move through those stages and actually do the planning, complete all that planning, do the work, and then obviously complete any work. So before you even get into the work order and see the work orders, which might be on the next slide, you'll get information like that. And then this is probably the slide which is probably the key to the question is, when you do get into a work order operation, you'll see the information like a SLAM or a safety check. You'll see any hazards and controls. You'll see PRTs that are there, and you'll also then be able to complete any corrective actions or any other items that are actually in your process, whether that's completing timesheets or anything else. All of those things are all listed down there for you just to complete.
Excellent, thanks, Mark. It's such a simple dashboard that even I might be able to use it as well. And just on one last question here that I wanted to get onto while we're on the point of the SAP integration, and this is probably more for you, Tanya. Is Obzervr dependent on a particular version of SAP, Fiori, etc.?
So happy to flick it over to Mark, but right now we have integration with both ECC6 and S4HANA. Mark, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, yes, I think that's probably the answer. Most customers are all on ECC or transitioning to HANA. Look, there's no real major changes in SAP PM when it gets to HANA. So what we've noticed is there's almost little variations in our code, I suppose. So from our point of view, the integration operates across that platform. So we're ECC upwards and fully compatible with any of our customers at the moment. So, look, I think if you step right back into the older versions of SAP, yes, there would have to be work, but I don't think many of the customers are in that space anymore.
Excellent. And a question now a bit further out of scope. So is there any limitation on bringing this technology to LATAM or other regions?
No, and I'll let Tanya talk to that too, because what we've done is is LATAM is a really good example. We've spent a bit of time to ensure that all of our screens are translatable in many languages, and I'll let Tanya talk to that. But certainly from a implementation point of view, there is we've also duplicated a lot of our training material in Spanish and English, and I'll let Tanya talk to the literals in Obzervr as well and how that works.
So when Mark says he'll let me talk to it, he means I'll give you a technical answer. So essentially, Obzervr works with a dictionary in the background. So, you know, what we've done for different types of customers is where they have a different language, we make sure that the dictionary that we use in the background is according to what they would use. Like a work order, if you look at a Google Translate, it's not going to work, but that we make sure that the dictionary is right for them, and then they can flick that across different languages. But also, you know, it's Latin America, probably 3 years ago now, I won Obzervr won a place on one of the tours to go there, because the technology was able to be used in those different, we spend a lot of time on user experience and the guiding directions with icons, etc. So you don't always need, some of the places we go to in Africa, people are actually illiterate. So they can't even just, you know, being able to read something. If I have an icon and I know it says go here or do this, or it's a little, you know, hazard icon, that's how people learn easier as well as utilize it easier. So UX is very important to our team as well. So no issue with LATAM. I don't speak Spanish, but I know Mark does, and that's how we did our previous term. Mark did all of our pitching for us, like he's done today. So good.
Excellent. That always helps. You showed us the dashboarding side of things, and just a question here as well. Is there any example of the analytics side?
Yeah. So if I step down, and I'll let Tanya talk to that. Yeah, so probably go from here, Tanya.
Yeah, so we have included a couple of screens in this presentation, but essentially, remember, analytics is the combination of information that we get from either your head office systems, what we're talking about today is SAP, or any other, let's say it might be a safety system, Enablon, etc., as well as data that's now gone down to your frontline workers and come back up again. So it's the ability to take all of that information that's now been captured in digital data, not a signature or a checkbox, a digital result that I can now put on this dashboard. And you can slice and dice it any which way you like. And really, this is an example of a safety dashboard where you can click on, say, well, what are my high-level energy sources? But the important thing about dashboard is, again, who am I? What do I care about? So if I'm a supervisor, what's most important to me as a supervisor? If I'm the safety representative from HSE, what's the most important thing for me to care? Otherwise, we can put lots of data on here, but it won't really mean anything to you, and you can't manage by exception. So it's important when you do these dashboards is, I have all the data, but what will help you to actually manage by exception? How do you find that information needle in the data haystack is something that we talk about. You know, over here, I think I saw a shift handover. This might be example of a shift handover dashboard. So what are the notes that the supervisors have captured? How do I know who's on roster, who's off roster, who's called in sick? What hazards have been reported? How many break-ins have I had, you know, break-in work orders. So all of that information is actually available and can be put on an analytics dashboard for you as well. And then over here, as a maintenance supervisor, you might want to just see how many exceptions have I had. So if you look at more, you know, fixed plant, daily crusher inspections, conveyor inspections, you know, if I do daily crushes, how you can use this dashboard to really manage by exception to say, where have I had the most exceedances, alerts, alarms, and drill down. Because as you click on the dashboard, it starts drilling down and it can take you to the very specific work order, or you can go right back to the top and say, well, show me the last 2 years of this primary crusher, and let me have a look at where have I had spikes in, bearing temperatures or something else which might cause this machine to go down very soon. So this is an example of what's possible, and it's really about what can you imagine, because we have all the data, to be able to create these.
Excellent. And that's really important to give operations the ability to slice and dice what they need. And you've also touched on there the shift handover, which was another question we had that came through. So that's answered that one. We do have just a couple of minutes left, so we might try and get to one or two last questions. I have one here from Osman. So he asks, is decision making based on maintenance data still reliant on a maintainer, or have you automated the decision making for maintenance tasks?
I'll let you take that as a
automated decision making for maintenance tasks. Look, I think there's information that's gathered by the maintainer which drives decisions to be taken. Now, like we talked about, I think there's certainly alerts that can be driven. There's certainly tolerances that can drive information. So if for example, in Tanya's example, if the heat of something is actually above tolerances, then it might drive an alert. So there is that ability to then drive decisions and then have someone almost create an automated subsequent notification or work order to actually go and check that out. So there has been things, and I'll let Tanya talk about it, there has been things that we've noticed at our customers where they have noticed equipment potential failures before they've actually happened, and that saving is huge. And I'll let Tanya talk about the specific example, because what it does do is it provides you're capturing the data, and nobody really understands anything different, but then all of a sudden when something comes up that is out of the ordinary, you say, hang on a minute, that's the third day that data's been out of tolerances, and let's go check that out. Let's make a change to our process. So I'll let Tanya talk about that.
So look, I think we've only got 1 minute left. So what we might do, Sheldon, is collate all of the Q&A that's come through and send emails to everyone. So the short answer is yes, we can actually drive those using what Mark said, but also importantly, because we've got real-time data coming through from SAP, I now know that even though the expected run hours or mileage is 80,000, it's actually at 90,000. So why do this service or check when I actually know I'm way further than I should be? But because it's live, you can actually start feeding that back live into SAP, and the maintenance guy or the planner can actually see that on his dashboard, rather than just paper-based process. I'm just expecting what was printed out versus what's reality. So, but I think in the interest of time, we're at 11:30. I'd like to say thank you very much for listening, and I do hope that it has been informative. And if you do want to arrange a follow-up, please do send us an email. We did have our email addresses somewhere here, or our teams, or go to our website. We'll be able to pick it up from there. And we really have enjoyed the pleasure of your company. Have a great day, and we look forward to talking with you again. Sheldon, over to you.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, guys. And I'll just add to that, for those in the audience today, you will receive a copy of the webinar recording afterwards, along with a PDF of the slides. And as Tanya mentioned there, we will follow up on the questions and collate something for you as well, to make sure we've captured all the information. You guys have done a great job with so many questions coming through, so you deserve a well-earned break and maybe a sip of water as well.
Coffee time.
Exactly. Thanks a lot for everyone who's attended today, and we look forward to welcoming you to the next webinar. Stay safe, everyone. Cheers.
Thanks, Osman. Thanks, Sheldon.
Thanks.